Welcome. Here is the news update on Ukraine for the 17th of September. In this update, 84 years since Stalin invaded Poland together with Nazi Germany. New explosions in Russia. Hostile takeover of oil company in Russia. Russia trying to dig trenches in Tokmak before Ukraine advances. A more thorough update from the frontlines. And finally, let's see the weird situation when Kim Jong Un takes a photo. September 17th is an important date to remember. It was on this day in 1939 that Soviet joined Nazi Germany in the invasion of Poland. This was something that was planned ever since they signed a pact on 23rd of August. Explosions in Russia's Belgorod region. Ukrainian channels claim that the S-300 system has been destroyed. The Russians used S-300 missiles for attacks on Kharkiv. Dozens of armed men on helicopters seized an oil company in the Irkutsk region, Russian media. It is reported that the incident took place on the territory of the Dulizma enterprise. Half of the employees were laid on the ground, and half were forced to face the wall. The guests took possession of all the company's documentation and actually became managers, the report says. Further obstacles are being set up, and fresh trenches are being excavated as the occupiers brace themselves for the anticipated Ukrainian offensive in Tokmak, located in the Zaporizhia region. Their efforts also involve reinforcing the defenses surrounding the city. According to a British intelligence summary, Tokmak is preparing to become a pillar of Russia's second main line of defense. The enhancement of the city's defenses likely signifies Russia's apprehension regarding Ukraine's potential tactical incursion into the first main line of defense in the north. The city of Scranton has been famous for this group of people for a long time. But now the city is helping Ukraine to remove the Russian occupiers in a much-needed way. In the United States, there is a collective production of 24,000 artillery shells every month. Business Insider conducted a visit to the projectile factory in Scranton, Pennsylvania, within the United States. The purpose of this visit was to oversee the production of 155mm M795 artillery shells intended for Ukraine, all at a factory price of $800 per round. During this visit, the manufacturing process was detailed. Remarkably, the Scranton facility on its own generates a monthly output of at least 11,000 shells, accounting for nearly half of the 24,000 shells produced monthly in the United States. According to Insider, the 24,000 is nearly double what the states were producing before the full-scale Russian invasion. Ukrainian forces appear to have achieved a significant tactical breakthrough in the Robotine area, within a segment of the existing Russian defense line, which they have been steadily expanding over the course of the past few weeks. They have pressed forward with their offensive operations beyond a portion of the Russian defensive line situated to the west of Verbov, a development that commenced on September 4th and has seen them widening their breach along a 2.6 km stretch of these Russian defensive positions. Despite these advancements, the absence of observable Ukrainian heavy equipment and vehicles beyond this defensive line continues to suggest that Ukrainian forces have not yet achieved a complete breakthrough of this defensive barrier. Ukrainian officials have hinted that the series of Russian defensive positions lying ahead of the Ukrainian advance might pose less formidable challenges than the initial Russian defensive layer that Ukrainian forces breached in the north. Notably, Russian forces had concentrated the bulk of their combat strength at these forward-most Russian defensive positions, as they sought to defend against potential Ukrainian counteroffensive actions. It is highly likely that these Russian forces have sustained significant casualties and executed tactical withdrawals to prepared positions situated behind the present defensive line. For a considerable duration, the Institute for the Study of War has maintained the assessment that Russian forces lack the manpower required to adequately cover the entirety of the multi-tiered Russian defensive fortifications in southern Ukraine. The Russian forces presently defending this defensive layer likely comprise elements of units that have been engaged in combat in the region since the commencement of the counteroffensive, or they may be units that were laterally transferred from other areas along the front lines. It's easy to forget about all the partisan groups that are doing heroic work while being inside the occupied areas. The Crimea-based Atesh partisan group has officially claimed responsibility for an operation in which one of its operatives deployed an improvised explosive device to disable 2 Russian trucks. This incident occurred within the occupied region of Henichesk, situated in the Kherson Oblast, on September 15. The International Court of Justice has resumed its proceedings regarding Ukraine's legal action against Russia, specifically related to the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Ukraine has presented its case, urging the court to hold Russia responsible for its alleged distortion of the genocide concept. These hearings are scheduled to occur in 2 rounds, with Russia presenting its arguments on September 18 and 25, followed by Ukraine's presentations on September 19 and 27. Russia is facing increasingly severe challenges in maintaining effective artillery support within the context of the invasion of Ukraine. These challenges are multifaceted and have significant implications for their military operations. Russia's ability to provide substantial artillery support has been greatly limited to just 2 sources of volume artillery: 152mm howitzers and 120mm mortars. They lack the necessary units to deliver significant artillery support using other tube artillery systems. The substantial firepower initially exhibited by Russia in terms of artillery usage, consuming around 20,152mm artillery shells daily, has placed immense pressure on ammunition stocks. Estimates of Russian artillery shell production vary, but it is believed that they have depleted millions of shells in a little over a year. An additional predicament for Russia is the shortage of replacement barrels. High-quality artillery barrels can endure firing thousands of shots, but the rate at which Russian 152mm howitzers are being deployed necessitates frequent barrel replacements. Russia's limited capacity to manufacture these barrels and the absence of required military-grade steel alloys in the country have compounded the issue. The sanctions on potential steel alloy sources since 2014 have further exacerbated the problem. Russia has had to shift its reliance from 152mm howitzers to 120mm mortars due to munitions and barrel availability. These mortars are more susceptible to counter-battery fire and are less effective in a modern battlefield requiring agile tactics. The deployment is slower, and they are highly vulnerable to counter-battery fire. Russian ammunition supplies have faced significant disruptions due to interdiction efforts by Ukrainian forces and frequent strikes on Russian ammo dumps. This has further contributed to the ammunition shortage. Owing to difficulties in replacing barrels as needed, Russian forces have been forced to operate with 152mm howitzers past their recommended replacement dates. This results in decreased performance, range, accuracy, and increased vulnerability to counter-battery and drone attacks. The changing dynamics on the battlefield, including increased use of mortars and the attrition of Russian artillery, have led to high combat losses. Russian artillery units are reportedly losing between 1% and 2% of the deployed assets every day. Collectively, these issues are impacting the effectiveness of Russia's artillery force in Ukraine, with significant implications for the overall war. The strain on their artillery capabilities has likely contributed to the ongoing military dynamics in the region, including the absence of a significant spike in casualty ratios despite Ukrainian offensives. On September 16, Ukrainian forces persisted in their offensive actions in the Bakhmut region, achieving notable gains in the area. Geolocated footage, dated September 15, confirmed that Ukrainian forces had advanced to the south of Rozdalivka, located approximately 13 kilometers northeast of Bakhmut, as well as in northern Klishchivka, situated roughly 6 kilometers southwest of Bakhmut. Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar reported ongoing clashes near Klishchivka and Kurdyamivka, located 12 kilometers southwest of Bakhmut, emphasizing the success of Ukrainian forces in the Klishchivka area. Colonel General Oleksandr Sysky, the commander of Ukrainian ground forces, shared footage of Ukrainian personnel in Andrivka, positioned 8 kilometers southwest of Bakhmut, following the settlement's liberation on September 14. Ukraine's advancements in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast likely compelled the Russian command to shift its focus to bolster the defense in that region. This led to lateral redeployment of elements from a relatively elite formation away from the Russian defense south of Bakhmut. On September 16, North Ossetian volunteer battalions, Storm Ossetia, and Alania, operating in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast, posted an image suggesting the presence of a small detachment from the Russian 83rd Separate Guards Air Assault (VDV) brigade in Nestyanka, located on the western flank of the current Ukrainian breach in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Elements of the 83rd Brigade were initially deployed to counter Ukrainian counteroffensive operations near Klishchivka in late June and were observed in combat in the area again in late August. Some elements of the 83rd Brigade were reportedly still operating in the Bakhmut area as of September 11, although it is possible that elements of the brigade were divided across 2 different sectors of the front. Given that Klishchivka has been a focal point of recent fighting in the Bakhmut area, the redeployment of any elements from the 83rd VDV Brigade amid Ukrainian advances near Klishchivka indicates a deep-seated concern about Ukrainian progress in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast and underscores Russia's prioritization of the defense in that area. ISW had previously assessed that Ukrainian counteroffensive efforts across multiple fronts would compel the Russian command to prioritize specific sectors of the front and execute lateral redeployments, which could create opportunities for Ukraine. These operations have effectively tied down relatively elite Russian units and formations. Russian forces have thus far refrained from committing these elite units to support the critical defense of western Zaporizhzhia Oblast, likely due to the ongoing Ukrainian operations around Bakhmut, which continue to hinder Russia's ability to do so on a large scale. ISW is planning to release a special edition that will provide an in-depth analysis of the strategic significance of how Ukrainian operations have constrained Russian forces in the Bakhmut area. Additionally, on September 16, Ukrainian forces made further advancements in western Zaporizhzhia Oblast, successfully penetrating the Russian defensive layer situated ahead of their current territorial gains. Geolocated footage, published on September 16, revealed Ukrainian progress along Russian defensive positions to the west of Robotyne, located 10 kilometers south of Kharkiv. Further geolocated footage, released on September 15, indicated that Ukrainian infantry had advanced along a series of Russian defensive positions immediately to the west of Verbov, positioned 18 kilometers southeast of Kharkiv. However, it is likely that Ukrainian forces did not maintain control of these positions. The Ukrainian presence at these Russian defensive positions suggests that Russian forces do not hold these positions either and that Ukrainian forces are continuing to operate beyond the Russian defensive layer, which extends northwest from Verbov to north of Solidka Balka, situated 20 kilometers south of Kharkiv. The last news is a bit silly. It's got to be hard to be a short dictator. Just take a look how all of Kim Jong Un's entourage had to kneel down to make him look taller. I'm sure they're used to it by now.